Star Wars Young Jedi Knights Diversity Alliance Chapter 19. Running inside the shadowy tunnels, ducking to avoid low-hanging space support beams, Jason found a passageway that led further downward. He saw fallen debris cluttering around the ramp, but the passage seemed to open into a larger chamber underneath. Take that out of your mouth. Which might offer them a place to hide, or at least a place to fight. "This way," he said, and ran headlong down the sloping passageway. Hearing Jason's voice, the assassin droids opened fire again and blasted holes in ancient walls. Tycho Thul needed no further encouragement and scrambled after Jason. Jaina, Tenel Ka, and Loe followed, trying to keep up without running into each other. They reached the bottom of the ramp, and the midnight darkness of the catacombs became thicker and oilier. The blackness lacked even the faint respite of stars twinkling far overhead. The sluggish air smelled thick and damp, clogged with mildew, as if nothing had ventured down here willingly for hundreds of years. Clouds of dust stirred under their feet as they rushed ahead. "This is as bad as the spice mines of Kessel," Jason murmured. Lois scrapped the ginger-furred head of an overhanging marble archway. Jaina stumbled on the uneven floor. Grumbling in vexation, she pulled out her lightsaber. "I can't see where I'm going." Jason was about to warn his sister not to create so much light, but Jaina ignited the weapon, instantly flooding the surrounding chambers with a dazzling electric violet brilliance. She glanced over at her brother and raised her eyebrows. "Those assassin droids can see in the dark anyway. We're the only ones who were blinded. No sense making it worse for ourselves." The companions rushed onward. By the crackling light of his sister's energy sword, Jason could see that they had entered a broad chamber buried below one of the ancient structures in the crater wall. Portions of the ceiling had fallen around, but the underground chamber seemed to have many exits, low tunnels that could be hidden lairs for strange, deadly creatures. In the violet illumination, Jason spotted glinting eyes and flashing fangs. He swallowed hard, but his Jedi senses, he detected skittering movement and the sudden sharp focus of predatory attention. "Blaster bolts," he says. The young Jedi Knight skidded to a halt, wondering which direction to go next. Maybe this wasn't such a good hiding place after all. Before he could worry further, bolts of sizzling light streaked across the room. Flashes of destructive fire spat from high-powered cannons trained by the assassin droids as the machines marched into the chamber where Jason and his companions had hoped to hide to make their last stand. With a thrumming of metal and a powerful wand of servant mortars, the young murderous droids attacked. The young Jedi Knights had no place to run. As one, Tenel Ka, Lobaka, and Jason lit their lightsabers and prepared to fight. Tycho Thul stayed behind them, muttering that he wished he had thought to stash a few weapons outside his ship before the droids destroyed it. IG-88 himself clomped into the musty chamber and fixed his quarry with his flashing scarlet optical sensors. The chief droid swiveled his body core sideways, bringing up his arm and focusing his built-in laser rifle. He targeted on Jason and fired, but Jason reacted in a flash. Flowing with the force, he brought up his lightsaber blade at the same instant that Tenel Ka reached out to protect him, crossing her turquoise blade with his emerald one. IG-88's bolt struck both lightsabers and ricocheted off, splashing its fire into one of the darkened side rooms. A roar of pain exploded from the shadows, and seconds later a mass of conjoined legs and flashing eyes and smashing jaws clattered out with the bellows of sounding its call for other monsters to join in. The huge combat arachnid launched itself on the fray while the other spider beasts stormed out of the surrounding tunnels, disturbed by the battle and hungry for fresh prey. "Oh dear, not again," EMTD shrilled. "I detest those creatures." "This was definitely not a good idea," Uncle Tycho said. His face had turned a pale gray and seemed more concerned about the arachnids than the deadly droids. "I suggest we discuss the merits of our escape plans after we have escaped," Tenel Ka said briskly. Except for Uncle Tycho, the companions stood back to back to defend each other against the double threat of assassin droids and combat arachnids. Clicking their jaws, the hideous creatures roared and skittered forwards. The murderous droids fell into formation and brought the weapons to bear. IG-88 launched a powerful grenade into the lead combat arachnid. The sharp projectile punctured the spider monster's body armor. The arachnid reared up, squealing in pain, and clawed at the wounded side with its sharp forelegs. Then the grenade exploded, blasting the bloated abdomen into dripping chunks that splattered the stone walls. A pair of twitching, disconnected legs splattered against the far wall. Enraged, the other combat arachnids boiled forward, hurtling themselves indiscriminately at all the targets in the room. Jason lashed out with his lightsaber, clipping off a side leg as one of the creatures galloped by. The monster did not even pause, so intent on stampeding into the foremost assassin droid. The burly Durasteel frame machine gripped the arachnid's legs with powerful hydraulic motivators and ripped the creature's limb from limb, as if the action were part of the assembly line process. But the creature's razor-sharp defenses worked well against the droid as well. Mandibles chewed into its domed metal head until the assassin droid's central processing unit had been ruined. Finally, the assassin droid's function ceased and the body seized up, immobilized by the depth grip of the mortally wounded combat arachnid. The giant creature sagged into death on top of the broken assassin droid. Both lay still. One of the relentless droids marched forward, raising its blaster rifle towards Jaina, but she moved too quickly with her lightsaber, severing the weapon's tip. When the droid attempted to fire, the blaster rifle exploded, sending out shrapnel and damaging the droid's optical sensors. "How's this for a system malfunction?" Jaina said, spitting the words out through her clenched teeth. She thrust her lightsaber into the droid like a sword, piercing its body core. Sparks flew as its spinal processors were severed. Blinded and immobile, it slumped out. "Jaina, look out!" Jason cried, charging as one of the combat arachnids reared up from behind her, ready to pounce. Jaina's world jolted out of her victorious reverie. Jason chopped with his lightsaber, slashing off the combat arachnid's mandibles and leaving it to drip green ooze from its mouth. "I like animals," he explained unrepentantly, "but not when they try to eat my sister." Tenelka, right beside him, struck with her weapon, decapitating the monster. It tumbled to the floor like a crashing starship. All of its pointed legs flailed and thrashed with reflex nerves, but the monster was dead, and Jason didn't have time to worry any more about it. IGG-88 and the two surviving assassin droids seemed to relish the fight with the combat arachnids, as if these monsters were worthy adversaries, more challenging than the core they had dealt with in some time. The chief assassin droid blasted one of the ferocious monsters repeatedly, aiming at its major leg joints one at a time until the creature collapsed, wriggling its severed limbs, twitching but unable to move itself. Then IG-88 moved closer and punched its long metal arm downward like a mechanical battering ram and crushed the monster's brain with a Durasteel-enhanced fist. Lobaka fought against the combat arachnid. Locked in its struggle, Loey could not see the danger coming from behind. Just before EMTD wailed a warning, the Wookiee instinctively lashed backwards, sweeping the lightsaber around an arc behind his waist. Loey severed an assassin droid's leg at the knee. The murderous machine tumbled over to sprawl on the ground. Even so, it did not end its attack. Instead, hauling its blasters, the droid fired low from its prone position. Attuned to the Force, Lobaka leapt into the air. Blaster bolts peppered the area where his shaggy legs had been a moment before and strafed across the combat arachnid Loey had been fighting. The creature was thrown backward, its bloated crimson body split open. Landing in between bursts of blaster fire, Loey whirled around and struck again with his molten bronze lightsaber, cleaving the droid's metallic head and optical sensors cleanly into two sparkling halves. One of the last surviving combat arachnids had seized Tycho Thol with his sharp claws and pointed legs, and now lifted the older man into the air. "Help me! Help me!" he shouted, but he failed and screamed, trying to escape. But Raynar's uncle had no Jedi powers, no lightsaber, not even a blaster. Jason turned as the other young Jedi Knights, but the first two to respond to the stress call were IGG-8 and the remaining assassin droid. The deadly machines lunged forward, heedless of any danger to themselves, as if truly dedicated to saving the older man. With precise surgical blasts from their razor rifles, they sliced off the arachnid limbs that held Uncle Tycho. The round-faced man tumbled to the floor as the two assassin droids hit the spider monster from both sides, using their brute force to drive it backwards. IG-88 jammed a small grenade between the creature's clacking mandibles and held it there. The arachnid writhed and spat, drooling poisonous resin from its jaws to try to rid itself of the offensive grenade. IG-88 did not release its grip, however, until the bomb detonated. The explosion mangled the droid's Durasteel hand, but did far worse damage to the combat arachnid, which shuddered and fell dead. The two remaining creatures squealed and retreated in their dark tunnels. IG-88's bright red optical sensors gleamed in the dimness, seeking other targets. He and the other assassin droid reached down and grasped Uncle Tycho. The brightly robed man trembled in terror and was unable to resist. "You are Tycho Thol," IG-88 said, clamping his damaged armor on his captive. "You are my bounty. You are my prisoner. Do not resist." "Help me," Uncle Tycho said. IG-88 looked at Jason, Jaina, Tenelka, and Loey. "Do not follow, or you will be destroyed. Tycho Thol must remain alive." The assassin droid said as if reassurance. "He will not be harmed unless you force us to harm him." The harsh synthesized voice sounded cold and implacable in the enclosed chamber. IGJ extended the free arm with his built-in blaster rifle. The other two assassin droids used both arms to point weapons at the young Jedi Knights, who stood frozen uncertain. Then with uncanny speed, the two droids hustled their captive out of the room and up the steeply sloping ramp with their metal footsteps thundering. Uncle Tycho's despairing wail echoed through the chambers and faded into the distance. Hey, let's go. We've got to help Tycho. How? Jaina asked in anguish. If we fight, they'll kill him. Tycho should have not left the protection of the convoy fleet, Temelkos said. Someone clearly once stole hostages. Born and Thul's disappeared. The Traeus guard on Tradewind tried to trap Renar and Arwen Druthul. Now these droids have taken Tycho Thul prisoner. She shook her head. We should have expected it. Let's get out of here, Jason said. Loie gave a discouraged groan. Indeed, yes, EMTD said. I believe this entire expedition has been an unqualified disaster.